Hello, my Happy Crumpers. Welcome back to Happy Crump and Wargaming. This is an extremely exciting video. So I've talked about it a little bit, but this is going to be an official kind of explanation for how the TTS tournament on the Discord server is going to work. As most of you know, I am hosting a TTS 5-round tournament on the Discord server. Currently, it is for members only, but in the future when we run these, we will probably open them up to other people. But for right now, it is one of the benefits of being a supporter of mine on the Discord. If you want to support me, you can also join using the link down below at Coffee. So, what is going to make this tournament work? What are all the burning questions people have? I'm going to go ahead and answer the vast majority of them right now. We also have a dedicated page where you can ask for TO-specific questions, but this is the way it's going to operate. And if you want to join, now's the time to learn quite a bit about and why it's going to be very, very exciting opportunity for you to learn Warhammer 40k at a much, much, much higher level. So let's jump right into it. All right, so how does it work? Well, it's going to be kind of similar to a standard GT that you might travel to for playing in real life, but there's a few differences just from the nature of being online. So it is going to be one round per week for 5 weeks. What that means is that you are going to play a single, you can play other games too, but as far as the tournament is concerned, you will be playing one round every single week against a randomly paired partner. All right. The way that randomization will work is it will follow Swiss rankings, win, loss, draw. So essentially, in the first round, it's completely randomized who you will be playing against, who's also registered for the tournament also. Then in the second round, winners will play against winners, losers will play against losers. Then in the third round, winners will continue to play against winners, 1 and 1 will play against 1 and 1, 0-2 will play against 0-2, and so on and so forth for all 5 rounds until we get to our ultimate champion, the final crumper, if you will, for the tournament. Now, being an online tournament, there's a few interesting differences than you will have to than you'll find in a standard GT. One, it's going to be just one game a week, which is much easier for people to schedule around than having to dedicate an entire weekend because we have kids, we've got jobs, we have all of these things. So you will schedule your game on your own time whenever you want. There are no rules for how you do this. Essentially, so let's say this. I am over here in Norway right now, and I get paired with an opponent who is in California. So there's a 9-hour time zone difference there, which can make scheduling very tricky. However, I am a morning bird. I enjoy waking up early. So what I do is I offer my opponent would he like to play while he stays up a little bit later and I wake up early? Maybe I wake up at 4 or 5 a.m. and play. Because for my schedule personally, that works. Now for him, he might hate having to play early, which means that we couldn't play at night at my time. At which okay, cool, I won't play at night, I'll play early. Perhaps I'm working a job, with my career, I'm primarily on YouTube now. I'm a little flexible during the day, so I can be flexible in the middle of the day, but he can't. That's okay. He's not available on Fridays. Okay, fine, we'll find a day on Tuesday. No issues. You're very, very flexible. And this sounds intimidating. It's really not. There are people who are like, oh, there's no way I could make up a 9-hour time zone difference. Of course this is. Because you're playing on TTS, which is awesome. So let me give you an example of one of the people who's playing. My brother will be playing in the tournament. My brother has 2 very small children and honestly does not have a whole lot of time to be able to sit down and play for 3.5 hours. Of course, rounds don't last for 3.5 hours, but I digress. So what he might choose to do is he might ask his opponent if their opponent is comfortable playing an hour and a half on Monday evening, and then to finish the game, the next hour and a half of the game at another day. And it's up to their opponents to decide whether or not that's okay. All right, that's going to work. I'll give a few more details about how to schedule your games in just a little bit. But the next thing to talk about is list changes in between rounds. So the entire purpose of this tournament is to get you used to the new meta. You want to play the game. You want to be able to jump right on in, understand what's going to happen with all the new points and all the new rules coming out of the data slate. So we are actually here to prepare you for that. So you will be allowed to resubmit your list in between every single round to update your list. Let's say you're playing AdMech and you're waiting for some of those sweet points drops or rules changes in the data slate, and you want to try the cohort out. Okay, cool. Hey, I hated that list. I don't want to be stuck with it for the next 4 rounds. No problem. In the next round, you're going to update your list and you're going to change it, resubmit it. You have to stay with the same faction, but you can change your list. Now, I know what people are already thinking, and no, you will not be allowed to list Taylor because you will not find out who your next opponent is, or you will not find out the next mission that you're going to be playing on until after the list submission cutoff has already occurred. So you're not going to know who you're playing or actually even what the mission is for the next round. Therefore, even though you're allowed to update your list so you can try new things, especially you can get rid of lists that you thought that you hated that you submitted for the first round. You can change. You will not be able to list Taylor, so you're not going to be gaining any advantage against your opponents or on the missions based off of this. But it is going to allow you to experiment with multiple different builds, really rapidly get a good concept of how your faction is operating in the new meta. So that's basically all I need to talk about on that page. I'm going to move on to the next one. Scheduling conflicts. Look, here's the deal. When you're playing online, both players are going to make reasonable, and when I say reasonable, that's all I mean. I mean reasonable accommodations. So the main time zones of people who are going to be playing in this tournament are going to be Central European Time and Eastern Central Time. These are that there's a 6-hour time difference behind there. There's going to be a few people who are coming from New Zealand. There's going to be a few people out in California. So there will be other time zones as well. Time zone scheduling conflicts are not nearly as intimidating as you might think. So the way it works, though, once you and your opponent agree upon an actual time, ooh, I just hit my microphone, sorry if that messed up sound for a second. Once you and your opponent agree upon a time, that is the time, and you do have to agree on it. You can't just say, hey, I only have this one time available for the entire week, and if you can't make it, then you have to forfeit. No, that's not the way it works. If you only have one time where you can play, that's on you. So you have to be reasonably flexible with your schedule. You got to give multiple examples, 2-3 different options at least. If, while you are scheduled and your opponent is a no-call, no-show, meaning you've made your game lobby and you're waiting for 30 minutes, then your opponent has officially forfeited. Now, your opponent might contact you 2 hours later and be like, dude, I'm so sorry. I was in a car accident. I couldn't make it. I'm very sorry. At that point in time, I highly recommend you look at your opponent and say, no problem, dude, let's reschedule. Don't be a jerk. The point of this tournament is to get everyone to be able to play so that they can improve their skill and get ready for the new meta. All right. Now, if your opponent's like, sorry, bro, I totally overslept. Well, that person did not respect your time, and it's totally fine for you to make them take a forfeit. Now, if there's any scheduling conflicts and people are arguing about, oh, hey, this guy wasn't reasonable, this guy was reasonable, you're just going to copy the text of your conversations and you're going to send it to me and I'll make the decision. I'll be the bad guy. No issues. We're not going to have that happen at all because we have a wonderfully accommodating and beautifully kind community. So I don't expect anyone's going to run into this. But if there are any problems, just converse with me. You're going to send me the chat logs and I'll read it and I'll make sure who's in the wrong. Okay. So you can always reschedule assuming the request is reasonable and is accommodating to the non-canceling player. What does that mean? If you do have to cancel, be like, hey, man, I'm sorry, work called, I have to go. Can we reschedule? Well, your opponent should say absolutely, because that's a reasonable thing to say. But at this point, the onus is on you to accommodate to the non-canceling player's schedule, which is totally reasonable. So the schedule is completely up to you. You can split it up however you want. If you and your opponent want to play 3 separate 1-hour-long sessions, awesome. If you guys want to play 1 3-hour-long session, totally fine. It's completely irrelevant to me to how you schedule. Use your own creativity. It's great. Technical requirements. Guys, you just need a computer. You can't use a toaster. So sorry, AdMech. Armies must be yellow scribed. Rasterizer is fine. If you don't know how to yellow scribe, don't worry. I have a guide set up for you, and it is maybe I'll link to it at the end of this video. But it's if you look at my playlist, it's under TTS setup. I think is the name of the playlist. But I digress. We are using a specific rule set. We're using the WTC FAQ. I think it is the most accurate FAQ. I think it fixes most of the problems. If you have questions about gameplay, just read the FAQ. It'll explain to you how the tournament rulings work. One of the really big things about WTC FAQ is that standing in walls is okay for charging. Now, everyone has questions about how this works, so I'm going to go ahead and switch to the TTS view to explain explicitly how this works. And I'll click this little button. Huzzah! And we're on to TTS view. All right. Check it out right here. So in order for me to explain this, I'm just going to basically show it. So we have a unit of custodian guardians who want to charge these orcs. Well, under technical rules as written, these orcs are unchargeable because right now I cannot get my entire base here, which means I would be standing inside the ruin, or I'd be standing on top of the orc. And my orcs are further than 1 inch away from the ruin, making them unchargeable. Well, WTC, the World Team Championships, and myself included, think that is a nonsense rule that is encouraging non-interactivity between players. So what the WTC ruling allows for is on the charge, and only on the charge, you are allowed to stand in the wall to make these charges legal. So what you can do is you can actually stand like this. So assuming you roll a high enough charge, which would mean that you can still charge this unit. Now, after combat is done, let's say the Custodian Guard completely whiff and they don't kill any knobs. After combat, they have to move back into a legal position. So combat is over. Now they have to move back to here. Okay? They have to make it legal. That is the way that works. Now, I'm going to go ahead and teach you how this works right now, because I will use this to set you up in the tournament, and so will many of the people in the tournament. So I'm just going to go and teach you guys a trick right now. If I want to make this so my opponent can't really charge me, but I know that because of the WTC ruling that they can, here's what I'm going to do. This knob's going to stand right here. So technically, it is a legal charge. If my opponent rolls a 7, they can get their model wholly within, which means that the unit has successfully charged. No one else, however, can make it legally, which means only one model is going to be able to fight, even on the pylon, because now that the charge has been legally, technically successful, these guys cannot stand in the middle of the wall anymore because the charge is already legally successful. All right. If that was confusing to you, just rewind it. Watch this a few different times. But essentially, once again, let me explain. The reason for being able to stand in the walls is just so you can make all these charges technically legal. And this only applies for infantry and beast, by the way. Swarms cannot do this. Vehicles cannot do this. Mounted cannot do this. You have to also legally be allowed to move through walls. So only beasts and infantry can do this. So in the ruling for the TTS tournament, and honestly most TTS tournaments, because most of them are utilizing the WTC FAQ, if this is a technically impossible charge due to the way that my base can't fit, then on the charge, I can actually stand in the middle of the wall. If you have questions about this, you can always call a TO to make the ruling, and it is highly encouraged. If you want to trap your opponent using this rule, then make sure that you leave one spot to make it legally possible so that then only one model will ever be able to get to hit you, which is actually to the Orc player's advantage in this situation. That is the way it is going to work, my Grouts and Gets. Let's go back to the PowerPoint, and we're going to finish this presentation up. Okie dokie, so we are back here. Just another quick thing, we're also using WTC terrain and WTC missions. What this means is that there will be no deploy teleport homers, there will be no Dawn of War, so you're not going to get surprised by those. But if you're not familiar with WTC terrain, then in the Discord under TTS resources, you can download all the maps. It's already done for you. You don't really have to stress about it at all. Gameplay. Games must be played in the server. The reason for this is, if there is a problem and you need a TO to pop in, I need you to be in the server so I can easily jump into the game, or my admin Cheto can jump in, and we can make a ruling, all right? So games must be played in the server. You don't have to be streaming, but you do need to be in the server for the games. There's going to be plenty of game tables for you guys to schedule for whenever you want. TOs will typically be available for rulings, although occasionally you may have to wait. So let's say, for example, you and your opponent are playing, and it is 4 in the morning my time. I'm probably not going to be awake, able to jump on TTS to answer a question immediately. So you might just need to go ahead and type the question into the TO question chat, and then we'll come and fix the question. We'll answer the question when we are up and awake. We are very, very active. There are going to be very few situations where you actually need to wake up, seeing as one of our other TOs is a vampire and does not like to sleep at night. So there will almost always be someone available to hop in game or to answer your question that you have. It's really not going to be a problem. Games will last 3 hours and 15 minutes. The 15 minutes is so that you and your opponent can explain your list to each other, so that there will be no gotchas. So that you can say, hey, these are my special abilities, these are the way they work. These are the unique things that you need to look out for, etc., etc., etc. And then it is 3 hours on the clock. So you will have an hour and 30 minutes, and your opponent will have an hour and 30 minutes. You can pass the clock very easily on TTS if you don't know how. I've made guides on how to utilize TTS. You can also ask that question in the Discord. TTS games can be saved and reloaded if necessary. If your opponent and you are butting heads on a ruling interaction and you must have one of us to rule on it and we are not available, you can just save the game state and then we can come in and rule on it. Now, I really don't think that's ever going to happen, but if it's necessary, it is available. The other cool thing about CTS games being able to be saved and reloaded is that if something happens and you and your opponent say, or you're 2 hours into the game and there's an emergency and one of you needs to leave, just save the game, finish the last hour at a later date. It's totally okay. So TTS allows you to be exceptionally and amazingly flexible with your schedule. And that is the gameplay rulings. Rules questions are very easy. They can be checked in Discord. I've already answered a bunch of the questions. The WTC FAQ, if you have questions on the way an interaction works and you have not read the WTC FAQ, please don't bother us with it. Just go read the FAQ. It will explain most things. However, some concepts can be quite confusing, so do not hesitate to type those into the TO questions chat where we will absolutely answer. So there is a dedicated channel to that. And please do not PM me with questions about this. Like, you can ask it in the Discord. I respond in the Discord. The reason why I don't want you to DM me with questions is because if you have the question, 20 million other people also have the question, and we can answer it for everyone, so absolutely everyone can learn all at the same time. Anyway, this is going to be an amazing tournament. We've already got a bunch of people signed up. We want more, so more of you come on over, join the members section if you're not already a member. If you are a member, send me a message so I can add you to the tournament, because this is going to be an incredible amount of fun. The winners will receive some form of prize support, and as these go on and there are more and more supporters, I can get actual more merch, and then we can increase the prize supports for these in the future. So this is going to be an absolute blast. I cannot wait to see everyone there. If you want to support me, please go ahead and check out the Ko-Fi link down below. And until next time, crump on, baby. Bye-bye.